Hey there, welcome back to Tim Talks. Today we are talking Tuscan escarole soup. You are going to love this recipe. Let me introduce you to some ingredients. This is one of my very favorite soups. I don't even know where I got this recipe, but I know it's a great little recipe, and this makes a quick, delicious, really healthy soup. What we've got here is 1 head of escarole, and I'm going to show you how we're going to clean that here. Next, we've got some garlic we're going to use. I'm going to use probably 3 or 4 cloves of this, and I'm going to show you how to deal with garlic, how to peel it and chop it. Here I've got a jar, or this is the equivalent of a 15-ounce can of navy beans. You could also use cannellini beans. I really want to say cannelloni beans, but I know it's cannellini. Anyway, they're very nice. They're a little larger than this. These are my own home canned beans. I've got 2 quarts of chicken stock here that I'm going to use. This is really lovely, beautiful chicken stock. I don't know if I'm going to use it all yet. It's going to kind of depend on how much of the other ingredients go and how much we need. I'll show you that in just a minute. I've also got some peppercorns here that I can grind and some kosher salt, and that's really all there is to it. This is a very simple, delicious, lovely soup. Now, to clean escarole, it's like any other green. You're going to cut the end of it off here, and we're not going to want to use this bitter white part of it. I'm just going to discard this. It's not even good to save for stock. Next, what we need to do is I want to cut this into bite-sized pieces so that in our soup it's fairly easy to eat. And here I'm just going to chop through it a couple of times. Escarole is not very large, you can see. I want to just chop it up into a small, small pieces that we can bite into. I'm going to chop them here and there. What we don't want to have are really long, kind of noodle slurpy pieces that are going to be a problem and make this sort of awkward to eat. Oh, got some, it's falling off the board there a little bit. That's not a problem. My board is impeccably clean, as should yours be whenever you're cooking. You can see nothing to chopping that up. I'm going to give that just another thorough chopping through because, again, I don't want to have to slurp up large pieces of endive, and I don't want my guests to have to do that either. I want this to be easy to eat. There we go. That looks pretty good to me. Now, our next ingredient here is some chopped garlic, and this is part of a head of garlic. We're going to use a couple of cloves. Get 1, a couple of them off of there. This is a really great flavor in this. In fact, it's one of the, besides escarole, and chicken stock, it's the only flavor in the soup. We're going to make sure we don't get any of the paper in with our escarole. Get that off of our board. Piece of escarole. Put that back. Escarole is a slightly bitter green. If you haven't had it before, it's not terribly bitter. It's not like turnip greens or mustard greens or something like that. Often used in salads, has a wonderful bitter taste to it when it's raw. I can't really compare it to anything else. It tastes like escarole. With the garlic, you can see that to peel it, what I do is I put the flat blade of my knife over it, I give it a little smash, and the peel comes right off generally. Alright, just because I said that, I'm having a little resistance, but there we go. We're just going to discard that. No good to anybody. We certainly don't want that in our soup. It's a very fibrous peel. It has an unpleasant mouthfeel to it. We don't want it in our dish. Got a couple others here. And there we go. See how that comes right off? We'll do these others here, and then I'll give it a quick chop and show you how you do that with a proper chef's knife. I like this little 5-incher that I've got. Really a nice knife for lots of things. I really don't prefer a very long chef's knife. I really don't feel like I need that. I can really control this knife well. In fact, you know, I've had that knife right there for over 30 years. I bought it at the Chicago Cutlery Store in Minneapolis, Minnesota when I was doing my graduate work. That's garlic and that's peel. Get that all off of there. There we go. Give my hands a quick rinse. And now we're going to chop this up. Right here, I'm going to move this off to the side a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Clean my knife blade. It's all going in the same place, doesn't really matter. I'm not going to be very picky about how I do this. I just want to cut it into a fine sort of slices here like this, you can see. That's how I keep the front end of my knife on the board, and I sort of slide it along, and I use my fingernails of my left hand to sort of guide the knife so I don't cut myself. This does not have to be perfect. Again, like most of my recipes, this is not delicate. This is a rustic country dish. I kind of imagine if I had an Italian grandmother, it's the sort of thing she would serve on a chilly autumn day. And I don't want to have huge pieces of garlic, but you know what, I really don't care if there are some pieces that are larger than others, because, again, this isn't a fussy thing. And am I serving this to the Queen of England? No, I'm not. I'm serving it to me and my husband and my guests. And everyone will be expecting lovely rustic Italian soup. Anyway, there we go for our prep. Now let's go over to the stove and let's start cooking. As you can see, I've got my faithful old soup pot heating up here on the burner. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and we're going to let that melt, along with 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Again, you use whatever fat you like. You're going to need about 4 tablespoons if you use the quantities that I'm using in this recipe. While we're waiting for that, I'm washing our escarole by putting it in a bowl. This is my salad spinner bowl of cold water here, and I'm just going to let gravity sift out all of the sand and other particles of dirt, and then I'm going to give this a spin in just a moment before we put it in our hot fat. Let me show you quickly how we do that. When we do this, we just leave it in the water, we let it soak. The dirt particles, which are heavier than, of course, the greens, they simply sink to the bottom. We lift them out and put them into a colander like this. You don't pour them out because you're going to pour the dirt back over them. Just going to do that until I get them all out. And here's the fascinating escarole retrieving scene. Takes a minute, that's all right, bear with me. There we go. And here I'm going to sacrifice a few bits of it. That's kind of unlike me, I realize, but there we go. Anyway, here we are. And now we're ready to go for a spin. Now that we've got our fat good and hot, it's time to put in the escarole. We're going to wilt this, and I'm just going to simply put this nice escarole in there. Probably dump it in there without making too big of a mess. A little bit of a mess, okay, that will happen. It's cooking. All right, you can see that. And this is also when you want to hit it with about a half a teaspoon of salt. That's going to preserve its color to some extent. And I'm going to give it a nice stir. Now, this is going to go fairly quickly. You see that, like other greens, if you've ever cooked spinach or collard greens, say, or, I don't know, Swiss chard, for example. It wilts fairly quickly when it hits some heat. It's going to be just delicious. I'm just going to add, oops, flying lettuce, flying escarole. I'm going to add some freshly ground black pepper right now. There we go. And if you're wondering why butter and olive oil, it's because butter has a lower burning point than olive oil does, and that's going to allow us to cook at a little bit higher temperature and still have the flavor of butter and the flavor of my delicious fruity Spanish olive oil, which I just love. That's going along great guns. See how simple this is? And this is such a delicious soup. Really, really comforting. I think I'm probably going to need 1 quart of stock, but we'll see. Now that that's wilted, time to put our garlic in. Get that in there, give it a stir. And you know, the thing is when you put garlic in hot saute, what's going to happen is you're going to almost immediately, within about 30 seconds, you're going to smell that wonderful garlic smell. And you know what? We don't want that to go much further than that. Here, I'm also going to add in my jar of navy beans. I'm not even going to bother to drain them. If this were a can of beans that I bought at a grocery store, an aluminum can, I would definitely drain and rinse them. Aren't those beautiful? They're going to be creamy and lovely in the middle. I love those beans. Anyway, so now it's time for our stock already. This soup is almost ready to serve already. There's a quart of chicken stock. Oh, I think that looks just lovely. But I think you could add a little more stock. I think I'm going to add about another 2 cups of stock. You could use vegetable stock if you like here, of course. You could also use beef stock. That would be delicious. There we go. I think that's nice. That's going to be a nice... There we go. That's what I'm looking for right there. That kind of a soup to bean ratio here. This recipe is probably going to serve 4 to 6 people. 4 hungry people, 6 to 8 people who aren't very hungry or who are just having a little cup of soup. And I'm going to warm this up. We want to bring this up to kind of a simmer, and then it'll be ready to serve. Okay, let's give it a taste. Have a look at this beautiful hearty soup with its greens and its nice navy beans right there. That's gorgeous. Let's give it a taste. Oh yeah. Oh, that's lovely. The flavors are, flavors really blend together well. There's a beautiful depth of flavor here. Clean, simple taste. I love it. Thanks so much for joining us today on Tim Talks. We'll see you next time.